What if one of the biggest Korean secrets for staying youthful has nothing to do with expensive skincare? Not another cream, not another supplement, not another anti-aging hack. Because in many Korean homes, the real secret has quietly been sitting on the table for generations. And what's fascinating is that modern science is now discovering that many of these traditional foods may help support the gut, reduce inflammation, protect the skin, stabilize energy levels, and even slow some of the processes linked to aging. So today, we're going to explore 7 Korean foods that may be helping millions of people age differently from the inside out. And many of the foods you're about to see were not originally created to be superfoods. They were simply part of everyday life. Now, science is catching up. But what makes this so powerful is not complexity. It's simplicity, because these are not rare luxury ingredients hidden in some remote mountain village. They are affordable, easy to find, easy to add to your routine, and when eaten consistently, they may change how your body feels week after week, not just how it looks in the mirror. So if you enjoy discovering ancient foods, forgotten health traditions, and simple habits that can help you feel younger, stronger, and more energized naturally, subscribe to the channel, because this channel is all about uncovering the things modern life made people forget. Number 1, gim, the sea vegetable that feeds your skin from the ocean. Most people see seaweed as nothing more than a thin snack sold in small plastic packs, something salty, crunchy, maybe healthy, but not important. But in Korea, gim, the roasted seaweed often wrapped around rice or served beside meals, has quietly been part of everyday eating for generations. And the reason matters more than most people realize. Because the ocean contains minerals the modern diet often lacks: iodine, magnesium, trace minerals, compounds that help support metabolism, hydration, and even skin function. In traditional Korean culture, sea vegetables were never treated like a trendy health product. They were simply considered nourishing, especially during recovery, cold seasons, or periods of low energy. And now researchers are paying attention to why populations that traditionally consume sea vegetables often show interesting patterns related to longevity and metabolic health. One reason is that certain seaweeds contain antioxidants and polysaccharides that may help reduce oxidative stress inside the body. And oxidative stress is one of the major forces associated with visible aging. It affects the skin, energy production, inflammation, even how quickly the body feels exhausted. What makes gim especially interesting is that it delivers nutrition without heaviness. You eat it, and your body feels supported, not slowed down. And in a world where many processed foods leave people feeling bloated and drained, that difference matters. The easiest way to use it is the Korean way, consistently, not once a month. Not as a detox, just small amounts woven naturally into meals with rice, eggs, soups, avocado, even broken over salads. Some Koreans grow up eating it almost daily, without ever thinking of it as a longevity food. But maybe that's exactly the point. The most powerful habits rarely look dramatic, and the next food on this list might be even more surprising, because it comes from a plant most people think is too simple to matter. Number 2, kongnamul, the sprout that makes ordinary meals feel alive. At first glance, kongnamul looks almost too ordinary to deserve a place on a longevity list. Just soybean sprouts, thin stems, small yellow heads, usually sitting quietly beside louder, more colorful foods. But this is exactly why so many people underestimate it. Because in Korea, kongnamul has been used for generations as one of those humble foods people return to again and again when the body feels heavy, tired, overheated, or out of balance. It appears in soups, rice bowls, side dishes, comfort meals. Not because it's trendy, because people noticed how it makes the body feel light, fresh, awake. And modern nutrition helps explain why. Soybean sprouts contain fiber, plant protein, vitamins, and antioxidant compounds that may help support digestion, circulation, and cellular protection. They're also rich in compounds linked to metabolic health and energy production. But one of the most interesting things about sprouts is this. Sprouting changes the seed itself. As the soybean begins to grow, certain nutrients become more bioavailable, meaning the body may absorb and use them more easily. It's almost like the plant becomes more alive and passes some of that vitality forward. That may sound poetic, but when you eat foods that still carry freshness, water, enzymes, and living energy, the body often responds differently than it does to ultra-processed meals. And Korea has long understood something many modern diets forgot. Youthful energy is not only built through restriction, it's built through nourishment. Kongnamul is also incredibly simple to use. In Korea, one of the most common preparations is kongnamul muchim, lightly seasoned sprouts with sesame oil, garlic, and green onion, warm, crunchy, refreshing. You can also add them to soups, stir-fries, noodle bowls, or even eggs. And because they're inexpensive, they became one of those quiet, everyday foods that supported generations without anyone needing to call them superfoods. Which brings us to the next food. And honestly, this is where things start getting much more powerful. Because the next Korean food may be one of the strongest gut health foods on the planet. Number 3, kimchi. The fermented fire that wakes up your gut. If there is one food almost everyone associates with Korea, it's kimchi. But what most people don't realize is that kimchi is far more than spicy cabbage. In many Korean homes, kimchi is not treated like a side dish. It's treated almost like a living food. Something active, something powerful, something that changes not only flavor, but the way the body feels over time. And this may be one of the biggest hidden reasons Korean food is so often connected with vitality and longevity, because modern science is now deeply interested in what happens when fermented foods become part of daily life. Kimchi is naturally rich in lactic acid bacteria created during fermentation, and these beneficial bacteria may help support the gut microbiome, the ecosystem inside your digestive system that influences far more than digestion alone. Researchers are now studying connections between gut health and inflammation, immunity, skin quality, mood, metabolism, and even how quickly the body ages. In other words, your gut may affect how young you feel more than your skincare routine does. And kimchi delivers something modern diets often lack: microbial diversity. For generations, Koreans consumed fermented foods daily without needing scientific terms to explain them. They simply noticed something. People who regularly ate these foods often felt lighter after meals, digested better, recovered faster, stayed more energized. Kimchi also contains garlic, ginger, chili pepper, and antioxidant-rich vegetables that help create a powerful combination of compounds linked to cellular protection. And surprisingly, some studies are even exploring how fermented foods may influence collagen breakdown and oxidative stress connected to visible aging. But what makes kimchi truly special is not perfection, it's consistency. Small amounts, every day, for years. That's the real secret. Not extreme diets, not miracle pills, just repeated nourishment over time. If you want to add kimchi into your routine, start small. A few bites beside rice, eggs, soup, avocado toast, protein bowls, because fermented foods can feel strong at first if your body isn't used to them. And once people begin eating kimchi regularly, many notice something interesting. Their body starts craving real food differently. Heavier meals feel heavier, processed foods feel flatter. It's as if the body suddenly remembers what a live food feels like. And wait until you see the next food on this list, because unlike kimchi, it doesn't look exciting at all. But it may actually be one of Korea's deepest longevity traditions. Number 4, doenjang. the ancient paste, that ages better than most people. At first glance, doenjang does not look impressive. It's thick, brown, earthy, sometimes even intimidating to people trying it for the first time. But hidden inside this humble fermented soybean paste is one of Korea's oldest food traditions, and possibly one of its most overlooked longevity foods. Because doenjang is not fast food. It's slow food in the deepest sense of the word. Traditionally, it was fermented for months, sometimes longer, allowing bacteria, enzymes, and natural compounds to transform simple soybeans into something far more complex. And the fascinating part is this: the longer the fermentation, the richer the biochemical activity becomes. Over time, proteins break down into amino acids, new compounds develop, beneficial microorganisms multiply. It becomes less like a simple ingredient, and more like a living ecosystem. Modern researchers are now exploring how fermented soybean foods may help support gut health, inflammation balance, circulation, and oxidative stress. Some studies even suggest these fermented compounds may help support healthy aging pathways linked to metabolism and cellular resilience. But honestly, Korea understood something long before laboratories did. The body changes when food is alive, and doenjang is one of those foods that seems to nourish people deeply without creating excess. Warm soups made with doenjang have comforted generations through cold winters, exhaustion, and recovery periods. Not because they were marketed as healing, because they genuinely made people feel restored. There's also something psychologically different about foods like this. They slow you down. You sit. You breathe. You eat something warm and fermented instead of something rushed and artificial. And maybe that matters more than we think. One of the easiest ways to try it is through doenjang jigae, a traditional Korean stew made with vegetables, tofu, mushrooms, and fermented soybean paste. Rich, savory, deeply comforting. You can also mix small amounts into soups, sauces, marinades, or grain bowls. And unlike modern processed flavorings that overstimulate the palate, doenjang creates depth without making the body feel overloaded afterward. That's a very different kind of satisfaction, not excitement. Sustainability. And the next food may surprise you even more, because it's spicy, bold, and intensely flavorful. Yet researchers are now exploring how it may actually support metabolism and vitality at the same time. Number 5. Gochujang, the red paste that turns heat into healing. Most people think spicy food is bad for the body, too aggressive, too irritating, too intense. But Korea has spent centuries using spice very differently, not simply for heat, but for balance, circulation, and vitality. And few foods represent that better than gochujang. This deep red fermented chili paste has been part of Korean cooking for generations. Sweet, savory, smoky, spicy. But beneath its bold flavor is something much more interesting. Because gochujang combines fermented soybeans, chili peppers, rice, and salt into a food rich in bioactive compounds that researchers are now studying for effects linked to metabolism and inflammation. One of the most talked about compounds is capsaicin, the natural component in chili peppers associated with circulation, thermogenesis, and metabolic activity. In simple terms, it may help the body produce more heat and use energy differently. And this is fascinating because many traditional Korean meals were never about excess. They were about stimulation without heaviness. Meals that wake the body up instead of putting it to sleep. That's part of why so many people feel sluggish after ultra-processed meals, but energized after balanced traditional foods. Gochujang also carries another hidden advantage: fermentation. Like other Korean fermented foods, it develops layers of beneficial compounds over time that go far beyond simple flavor. Researchers are now exploring antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and microbiome-related properties connected to fermented chili pastes and traditional Korean diets. But here's what makes this food truly different. It transforms ordinary ingredients into something memorable. A spoonful changes everything. Vegetables become addictive. Rice becomes satisfying. Simple meals suddenly feel alive. And maybe that's one of the real secrets of longevity cultures. Healthy food cannot feel like punishment forever. It has to create pleasure too. One easy way to use gochujang is mixing a small spoon into sauces, soups, grain bowls, or marinades. You can combine it with sesame oil, garlic, vinegar, or honey for an incredibly rich flavor, but moderation matters. Traditional Korean meals balance spice with vegetables, fermented foods, soups, and fresh ingredients. That harmony is important, because true nourishment is rarely extreme. And honestly, the next food on this list may completely change the way you think about aging, because youth is not only about what energizes the body, it's also about what allows the body to truly rest. Number 6. Jujube tea, the sweet Korean fruit that calms the body. When people think about anti-aging foods, they usually imagine something dramatic: a rare berry, an expensive powder, a supplement with impossible promises. But in Korea, one of the most comforting longevity traditions comes from something incredibly gentle: jujube tea. Made from Korean red dates, known as jujubes, this warm drink has been part of traditional Korean wellness culture for generations. And what makes it fascinating is that its power is not based on stimulation. It's based on restoration. Because one of the biggest accelerators of aging is not simply time, it's chronic stress, poor sleep, constant tension, a nervous system that never fully relaxes, and eventually the body begins paying the price. Skin loses brightness, energy drops, recovery slows down, inflammation quietly rises in the background. This is why traditional cultures often valued calming foods just as much as energizing ones. Jujubes contain natural plant compounds, antioxidants, and nutrients that researchers are now studying for their possible effects related to stress regulation, sleep quality, and cellular protection. And while modern life glorifies stimulation, coffee, energy drinks, constant productivity, Korean wellness traditions often included moments of softness, warm teas, slow meals, quiet evening rituals. Because the body repairs itself best when it feels safe enough to rest. And honestly, this may be one of the most overlooked anti-aging principles in the modern world. Not everything needs to boost you. Some things need to calm you. Jujube tea is naturally sweet, slightly fruity, and deeply comforting. In Korea, it's often prepared with ginger, cinnamon, or pine nuts during colder months. The experience itself feels healing. Warm hands around a cup, steam rising slowly, the nervous system finally softening after an overstimulated day. And that emotional effect matters more than most people realize. Because youthfulness is not only biological, it's energetic. People who age well often live differently, eat differently, rest differently. And the final food on this list may be the strongest example of that philosophy. Because for centuries, many Koreans did not see it as ordinary food at all. They saw it almost as a source of life force itself. Number 7. Korean red ginseng, the root Korea never treated like ordinary food. For thousands of years, Korean red ginseng has carried an almost legendary reputation, not as a quick fix, not as a trendy supplement, but as something far deeper, a root associated with endurance, vitality, resilience, and longevity itself. And what's fascinating is that Korea never treated ginseng like casual food. Historically, it was respected, protected, valued, sometimes even reserved for royalty, healing practices, or periods of physical weakness and recovery. Because people notice something unusual about it, not necessarily a burst of fake energy, but a steadier kind of strength, the kind that helps the body adapt instead of simply overstimulating it. and modern science has become deeply interested in why. Korean red ginseng contains active compounds called ginsenosides, which researchers are studying for their potential effects on fatigue, inflammation, circulation, cognitive function, immune health, and oxidative stress. In simple terms, scientists are exploring whether this ancient root may help the body become more resilient under pressure, and honestly, that idea changes everything. Because aging is not only about getting older, it's about losing adaptability. The body struggles more with stress, recovery slows down, energy becomes unstable, inflammation lingers longer. But certain traditional foods may help support the systems that keep the body responsive and alive. That's why many people describe Korean red ginseng differently than caffeine. Coffee often feels sharp, fast up, fast down. Ginseng feels slower, deeper, more stable. Almost like the body is being supported instead of pushed, and Korea developed entire rituals around it. Warm ginseng teas, broths, extracts, tonic drinks, not for instant gratification, but for long-term vitality. One of the most common ways to use it today is through Korean red ginseng tea or concentrated extracts in small amounts. And consistency matters more than intensity. That's another pattern you see again and again in longevity cultures. Small supportive habits practiced daily for years, not extreme health obsessions. And maybe that is the real Korean secret, hidden behind all these foods. Not perfection, not expensive products, not chasing youth in panic, but building a lifestyle that helps the body stay nourished, resilient, and alive from the inside out. Because when you really look closely at these Korean food traditions, you notice something powerful. Most of them were never created to fight aging. They were created to support life, to help digestion stay strong, to help energy remain steady, to help the body recover, to help people feel balanced through changing seasons and stressful years. And maybe that's why so many modern people feel exhausted today. We became obsessed with appearance, while forgetting the systems underneath it. But the body remembers. Sometimes all it takes is returning to simpler foods, living foods, fermented foods, mineral-rich foods, foods made slowly instead of artificially engineered. And the incredible part is, many of these foods are now available almost everywhere in the world. The secret was never impossible to reach. Most people just never learned to see these foods differently. So now I want to ask you, which of these Korean foods would you try first? Write it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because on this channel, we explore the forgotten foods, traditions, and habits that help the body stay strong naturally for longer. And trust me, the next video may completely change the way you look at aging forever.